And welcome back, of course, straight off of Interactive. It's time to get up close and personal with lawyer, politician. He was a presidential candidate last year, and he's made time to be right here on the show. I'm talking about Dr. Ekuru Aukot. Karibu sana.
Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome.
Good morning to you.
Morning to you as well. Jana, Apo Belgium.
Oh, I mean, okay. Like I said to you, I'm not really a football fan as such.
Don't disown.
But because everybody is watching football, I chose to support Belgium for a very cheeky reason. I thought it was time for us to answer the question, what happened to our servers?
To the servers.
Yes.
And you thought they'd be served
they'll be
on
served,
the pitch.
yes. But it was on a very light touch. But, you know, I think give it to France. They played a good game. And it was a tough game either way. It could have gone either side.
And if there's anything to say about this World Cup, it's really been quite unpredictable.
Completely.
You know, up until this point, nobody really knows. There's no favorite you can say, these are the guys who are taking it home.
No. And whenever I watch football, I prefer to support the underdogs, but I don't know who's the underdog right now.
It makes a better story.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see today's game.
Today's game, England-Croatia, again, I think it will go either way. I mean, both, although I think watching some of the analysis in the recent days, it looks like England's game is improving, you know, as they progress. So again, well, they could just make history. I understand it was way back in
82, 86?
Or whatever, those days. I think it's been half a century since they won, maybe 1960 something.
Wow.
That's when they won the World Cup. So
we'll wait
why
and
not?
see.
They could make history.
Okay, and this is happening now. But, you know, back then as a young boy, you know, 27 siblings, were you the soccer star of the family?
I played football in high school, but not that aggressively. As a matter of fact, actually played more table tennis than football. But I did play football, and I did a bit of drama too in high school. In primary as well in high school, because I was in the debating club. So I guess that way also inspired what I was doing.
And you know, for most people, especially at that level of education, when you're in primary school, high school, you're in debate club, usually the course is from there. After debate club, you must become a lawyer. Was that the course of discussion that was taking place at that time in your life?
To be honest, I didn't want to become a lawyer initially. My first choice of courses, I mean, was dentistry. And my principal then, Cabinet Boys, J.S. Munchulu, as we call him, insisted, no, you must fill in a second choice, a law degree. And yes, I missed dentistry. I don't know why. I was just interested in dentistry. I guess because I was having many teeth problems back in the day, so I wanted to see how I can fix them. But, you know, law almost became natural because I got the requisite grades. You know, went to the University of Nairobi, and thereafter, everything else has been law.
All the way.
All the law. Until politics checked
Until politics came. Yes. And we were talking about that also in a bit, how you jumped into what some people call really murky waters of politics.
Yes.
But when there's 26 others of you in a farmo, you know, some people will say, we are 5 of us, we are a big family. Multiply that by 5, add 2 more. That's the Aukot household. How was it?
Yeah, you see, back in the days, I think, you know, the situation, the context has changed so much. My father was basically a very rich man by Turkana standards.
Right.
Maybe if you were to convert all his property in terms of animals he had, I mean, he couldn't count his camels, cows, you know, goats and all that. He'll probably be a billionaire by those standards. And back in the days, I think the dictates of society, especially in many pastoralist nomadic communities, dictates that, you know, when you have such a large home, you need a bigger family to take care of your estate. So sometimes even marrying a second, third wife did not necessarily come from the man himself. The hajjing could come from the other wife that, listen, I'm not able to take care of all these goods, because inheritance in Turkana was almost automatic. As a wife comes into the homestead, she's apportioned her property, i.e., for example, she'll have a couple of goats, cows for milk, a donkey for transportation, and maybe, you know, a camel. And then, of course, the issue was, you know, each home must have enough children to be able to take care of that. So the man sometimes retained a very small portion of the property. So in Turkana community, you will hardly hear people fight about inheritance issues. There could be, there are cases, but hardly. And the only struggle about property to be inherited is that which belongs to the man, which he kept. And sometimes that also is automatic. Another brother or uncle could just inherit and take it away, and nobody had any qualms about it. So that's the concept within which I think I grew up. All my mothers, we don't have the concept of stepmother or stepbrother.
They're all your mothers?
My family, they're all my mothers, they're all my brothers, and we all live together. We, as a tight-knit family. I know all my siblings. I didn't have to sleep at my mother's home. I'll choose where to sleep, even including my auntie. So we are a community. I mean, a community, and you know, even the concept of a homestead, the way a homestead is structured, it's not like you travel a kilometer to find another home. All homes were around. So we grew in that kind of community. And some of the lessons I learned when I was young is that whenever other children were visiting my mom's homestead, my mom would prefer actually to feed them first than to feed us. So I think we grew up knowing that it's always good to share, and you know, guests are more important than you know the hosts.
I know it's very interesting because one thing that people usually learn, especially with the African sense of community that we have, is that especially as a child, once you get out there, probably get your first job, a bit of prosperity comes along with your career choices and whatever you're doing. At times, everyone back home is like, yo, Ekuru, now that you're doing well, there's this young man who hasn't, you know, one of your brothers hasn't finished school, there's this thing that you need to do. Did that happen to you on your way up the ladder, and how do you deal with that? Because you look back and it's
still happening even now. I mean, in the pastoralist communities, it's so difficult to only take care of your family. I mean, the extended family is part of your family, and there are many people have got many challenges. I mean, I recall, for example, I mean, when all my other mothers except my mother still alive, all others passed on. But I do recall, for example, when I will go shop for my mom, the first thing she will ask me is, have you also done shopping for your other mother? And that became the tradition. So I will not go home. I will carry shopping, or if I carry one shopping, they will divide it. The same thing with, your brothers, not like my brother from my mother, but my other brothers from the other mothers. Your brother's been sent away from school. So we still do that up until now. We still support family very much. If you went to my mother's home today, you will find our youngest is probably, I think, 30. My youngest sister, married. So all the kids that you'll find at my mom's place are actually grandchildren, nieces, cousins, and they just live in my mother because, I mean, the family, it's a big house for her. I mean, that's the first thing I did for my mother when I made some money. I built a big home in a village, and yeah, so it's become like a lodging for relatives and everybody.
They can all come into that house and enjoy themselves. Okay, and as all of this was happening, you go to University of Nairobi, you get your degree there. How do you manage, you know, to go overseas and, you know, further your education?
So I did, after the University of Nairobi, I graduated in 1997, and I was keen to actually complete, to get a master's degree. So immediately after Kenya School of Law, which is a requirement for us lawyers, for you to be able to be an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. So I did that 1 year, and then immediately, meanwhile, I was applying for a scholarship. So I got the British Chevening Scholarship back in the days, very competitive. I think as it is even right now. There are only 10 slots available for Kenya. So 1999, I was one of those lucky fellows. Actually, the story is very interesting. I had applied a year before, I think 97, 98, and somehow I think my application never got presented. So then I did again when I applied, and the lady came back to me and said, but I thought you had applied last year. I said, yeah, I didn't get any results. So anyway, long story short, I get the British Chevening Scholarship. So I went to the University of Warwick to study law in development. That is a 1-year multidisciplinary master's program. I finished in the summer of 2000, but I was getting ready to come back home. The school interested me in what they call the graduate teaching assistantship. It's a fellowship program. The conditions were very clear. It's like a job, but you also teach alongside a professor of law. So this is how I was actually inculcated into constitutional law and administrative law, because I taught alongside Professor John McEldony, who was the lead professor in constitutional administrative law, and I was doing the tutorial classes, because that's the system of study in some of these universities, that you're broken into groups of maximum 20, and you actually go through discussing the lecture with a tutorial fellow. So I was a tutorial fellow. And that's what I did for, and of course the other condition was that you must register for a PhD because you're also, they see you as a resource. So that's exactly what happened. So as I was teaching, alongside I was also studying for my PhD, and it was, the mandatory period was 4 years maximum, because I think it's cheaper for the university than to hire a full professor. So yes, I indulged in forced migration. I mean, many people think my PhD is in international refugee law. I mean, in constitutional law, it's not. I am more of a constitutional lawyer by practice, by participating in constitution-making processes in quite a number of countries. But actually, I did study forced migration, the protection of refugees in the Kenya. And I studied particularly the refugee camps of Dadaab and Kakuma, and challenged the idea that international law or even regional law is not effective when it comes to the national. There's another layer or sphere of protection, what I call the local level. So yes, that's what my PhD was about, the localization of international refugee protection in Kenya. And
you took that, and of course you lectured that across different institutions. You have your doctorate, of course, there, you're a PhD holder. Why does someone with all of this going for them decide to jump into this dirty waters called politics?
So I think, see, look at my study, my PhD, my master's as well. There's a background on human rights and issues of governance at all times. Because why are people being displaced from their countries of origin, from their villages? It's because something has gone wrong with the governance structure, the lack of respect for human rights. You know, so that was always the background: human rights, governance, politics. And there's always this interconnection. So when I came back from the UK, that's about 2005. Of course, I started looking for jobs. The first consultancies I did was with the Standing Committee on Human Rights. That time they were introducing a program called Human Rights for Development. So I was more of a consultant. It was difficult getting a job. At some point, actually, I was being told you're overqualified. I think people did not believe that at 33 of age, you will have finished your PhD. And that became really a big issue for me. But eventually, I joined Kituo Sharia as the CEO. And in Kituo Sharia, you know, it's like a law firm, even though it's an NGO, but you represent actually the indigent, I mean, the poor and the underprivileged. And for me, that really gave me satisfaction in what I was doing, because I would go to court on issues to do with land, labor, and human rights. And again, looking at all these, interwoven in the fact that the political system is not taking care of its most vulnerable. So, and of course, I participated in political processes, not as a candidate. But I think for me, the calling came in when we went into the constitution-making process in Kenya. You may recall I was the director of the Committee of Experts that wrote our country's constitution. And the idea there is you're giving people a structure of governance. I mean, even the fact that, you know, we have got a chapter called Leadership and Integrity in it. So, and these all actually begin to make me question leadership. And it gave me the chance to travel around the country to get people's views. And people, central to all people are saying actually leadership is a big problem. And of course, when you compare it to other countries, say, for example, our age mates of tiger economies of Singapore and the rest, you realize those countries progressed so much because of a certain leadership. It was about stewardship for them. And then, of course, I started going around other countries in Africa as an advisor. Like I started in South Sudan as a senior advisor to SPLA. I mean, of course, there I got thrown in right into the middle of a liberation struggle and the kind of desired political leadership. I went to Egypt, Tunisia during the Arab Spring as a part of a team of experts reviewing their constitution. Then I went to Zimbabwe and Zambia. Ended up in Liberia, and my last assignment was in the mountain kingdom of Lesotho, where I wrote for them the roadmap on how to get started on constitution making. But if you look at all these countries, it's about leadership question, governance. So I really asked myself in 2014 when we started the idea of Third Way Alliance. It was then called the Middle Way. Why am I going around other countries trying to fix their leadership, their governance structures, while we still have outstanding issues back in our country? And of course, one of the questions that I was always being asked out there after the constitution-making process in Kenya, that Kenya's genius in its new constitution was the chapter called Leadership and Integrity. But people ask, how come Kenya is so corrupt? Most of your leaders are corrupt, and even during that time, we are being accused. People are asking me, but Kenyans, if you care about integrity, how come your president, your deputy president are suspect in the ICC, and you guys still elect them? So there was something psychic about, people thought, there's something psychic about Kenyans, you know, and therefore all these things started playing in my mind, and I started saying, you know, and of course, again, the other event that triggered my going into politics was the 2014. If you remember 2014, the Baba while you were away, when I think Raila had gone, I think, to visit the US for 3 months, and he came back, and clearly the country was so divided. And that's when we started the idea that Kenya needs a third way. Kenya needs a middle way, because the political extremes were real. They're really.
It was too polarized.
It was too polarized, but also you cannot wish away people who have President Kenyatta's persuasion, Raila Odinga's persuasion. So what about the rest of us who just want a country where we can actually talk of a certain type of politics, conversational politics, without necessarily confrontation, without necessarily, you know, demonstration. So that's when we came with the idea of the middle way. Fast forward, it became third way, and the idea was keep it as a movement. And what I did is I tried to persuade as many people, as many political party leaders in some of the many small parties. Why can't we people come together, just form one political? And I wasn't interested, to be honest, in elective politics myself. I just wanted to be able to contribute to. I made an observation that we are not doing very well. We are spread so thin, yet we are all saying we are the alternative. So anyway, when I realized that it was so difficult to bring many of these political parties together because everybody was all holding on to their own party. And I had the burning urge that we really must present an alternative to the people of Kenya, both in terms of clear thinking on where we want to go as a country. And you see, that's why we came up with the idea of 6 pillars: ending economic injustice, ending theft of public money. And I'm happy today, everybody's talking about theft of public money. They're not calling corruption anymore. In fact, I was very impressed the other day when I watched William Ruto's interview with Mark Masai. And he was talking the language of third way, theft of public money, you know, those kind of things. So meanwhile, I was in Liberia, but trying to get involved with friends. So one time I actually decided to fly in after chatting with friends on Twitter. I said, guys, let's have lunch and let's talk about this idea very seriously. So I flew in from Liberia overnight, had lunch with these folks, and then Monday I was going back. And I was trying to persuade them, why don't you guys who are on the ground give this thing leadership? And some of us out there will support in whichever way we can. At that point, I never really thought about running for any elective office. At some point, people were just thinking automatically, because I'm from Turkana, I must run for governor of Turkana, or I must run for MP of Turkana. I mean, this is again the linear thinking in our politics. So anyway, long story short, after some time, people say, you know, why are we talking about the alternative if we are not going to offer ourselves? Where are these alternatives going to come from? So that's when I got challenged, and I challenged myself. I say, it's true. We cannot keep on sitting on the fence, lamenting, complaining about bad leadership, and we're not offering ourselves. And you threw your hat in the race. So I resigned my job, my UN job, and I told my bosses, you know what, I'm going to develop this idea in Kenya, and I'm likely going to run for public office. And they were like surprised, but some of them really understood. And that's when I came and started working on Third Way Alliance, registration of the party, up to the time when we got our certificate in February. Last year, we decided to field in candidates because we said, we are going to be the alternative. Demonstrate you are the alternative. Offer yourself. And that's pretty interesting. And let's just stick to matters of leadership. In question, the whole question about, you know, official leader of the opposition. How did that pan out? What's going on? Are you the leader of opposition? To be frank with you, I mean, yes, I'm happy to take up that role. You know very well that under our constitution, there is no official leader of the opposition. And we claim this title because when we saw the way things were happening in the country, any government of the day must have an opposition. Anybody who is not in government really must be able to offer alternative. And our definition of opposition is not the kind of confrontational politics, the politics of chest thumping. We don't pride ourselves of having a tribal, regional base. We pride ourselves of having probably some of the best ideas, best manifesto so far. I mean, Kenyans didn't see that, but at least we say that to ourselves. And I can tell you this, of all the political parties that participated in the last general election, of all the presidential candidates, only Third Way Alliance has demonstrated it can participate actively in public affairs. For example, we were the first political party, after seeing what was happening last year, to come up with a 14-point agenda on what we call national conversation. Other people were pushing for dialogue of 2 or 3 people to be able to dialogue, but we insisted no. We need a conversation that will involve all Kenyans. And we listed 14 issues, including theft of public money, the role of parliament, food crisis, insecurity, and all those things. And that document is out there. We did that as a political party because we believe those are the issues that were concerning Kenya. And that's the kind of politics we want. When President Uhuru nominated his cabinet, we were the only political party that provided a memorandum to the vetting committee of parliament to tell them, you have to look at these issues about these cabinet secretaries, permanent secretaries, ambassadors, and the rest. And we even challenged President Uhuru's creation of the chief administrative secretary because we believe it was not constitutional. No any other political party, even those who chase them and say we are the opposition, none of them, even with the leadership in parliament, none of them did that. In fact, they boycotted those sessions, which was really an irresponsibility because your people have elected you to go and represent them. You have not done that. We are the only political party that actually provided a memorandum on what the national budget should take into account. Now, that is opposition. We are also the only one who actually gave views on the proposed tax regime by the Jubilee government. And we indicated how it will be injurious to the people of Kenya, for example, if you tax exempt maize flour, LPG, and all basic things that require certain cost. I mean, and many, many other things we have participated in, including numerous processes on national issues. Now, that for me is what opposition is all about. It's about putting the government into check. It's about asking government to account. We are the only ones who also commented on the national budget when it came. We gave our views, and they are out there. And you can find these documents all over. And we invited always the media. So for me, that is the kind of opposition that we are talking about. And because we are the only ones who are playing that, and I say this also in contradistinction to the fact that others who have been claiming this position chickened out eventually. And I think you know, of course, after the handshake, not my concern, but we cannot abandon an opposition role. Okay. Any government of the day needs an opposition role. And we made it clear that Third Way Alliance will remain in opposition to make sure that the government is put into check. Okay. And I think if we got fair coverage as a party, people will appreciate actually that we are playing more constructive politics than all other political parties. Indeed, Daktari. And even as we wind up on this one, of course, the 2017 elections, they came, they went. You are a presidential candidate. Didn't come your way for various reasons. But in that particular pursuit of presidency and leadership of this country, as you wind up, what is the biggest lesson you learned about yourself? Because this is you're jumping into something very new. Yeah. What did you learn about Dr. Ekuru Aukot in the thick of things? Listen, I think being patient and being committed to a cause and believing in a cause is something that, for me, I have really being resilient. And I'll give you an example, Jeff. When I went into this, and by the way, I was the first candidate to declare my interest for the presidency, way back 2016 in February. Many people may not recall that. And when I went to these, people laughed and said, you're a joke, you're a Turkana, you don't have numbers, you don't have money. But I believed in the idea. And I say to myself, as an intellectual, and many of us out there, we keep on sitting, analyzing political processes, but we do nothing about it. So I learned the power of resilience. I learned the power of commitment, that you can actually achieve something. When we lost in the August election, we had no qualms to congratulate President Uhuru Kenyatta for his win, because we believe there was no miracle that will happen to make Ekuru Aukot the president, looking at the circumstances. But because of the commitment I had for change in this country, I challenged my chairman, CPA Miruru Waweru, and I told him, you are a CPA of many years. Apply your mind to how this election was being handled. Can you look at the transmission of results? And we are the only political party, Jeff, many people do not know, that actually came up with an audit of transmission of results, which we filed at the Supreme Court, supporting the petition by Raila Odinga. And if you read the Supreme Court judgment, they actually cite our audit. It's our audit that actually established irregularities and illegalities that nullified President Uhuru's win. Okay? After that, again, we were discriminated. Again, the power of commitment and believing on an idea. When the IBC wrongly gazetted only Uhuru and Raila, I went to court and said, no, this is not right. We are here to defend the Constitution. Remember, one of our pillars was to defend the Constitution. So for me, I'm really at peace with what I did with myself, and I'm very happy I participated in that process. Because even in the repeated election, I think the other competitors, their interest was either to cause a political crisis in the country, either for purpose of inclusion. But we said, no, before we go that route, can we talk about whether the Constitution and the rule of law has been respected? And you remember the Justice John Mativo's case. Again, this is a commitment from us, and I think for me, once you believe in a cause, it doesn't really matter whether you have money, whether you have the numbers. Eventually, people started saying, oh, Ekuru Aukot, you saved the country. And 2 weeks ago, I was in Meru addressing the NCCK conference. And I didn't know that we are called Okoa Jahazi in the Mount Kenya region, because that we saved. And this, if we didn't do that, because to be honest with you, the choreography, the politics of the time, the toxic politics of the time, was that, you know, we are going to disrupt our country. And again, as a student of forced migration, I have seen ministers, generals, lining up for food, ration, maize in refugee camps, in hot refugee camps. So I think for me, my challenge, not just for me, do not see a task as being huge or, you know, insurmountable. If you believe in a cause, go for it. Okay. I think not a multitude can contribute to change in a country. We made our contribution in our own way, but I think in a very big way. And you shall leave it at that, Daktari. Thank you so much. Final question, just a yes or no. 2022? Well, as a party, we have taken the position this. People who talk about 2022 right now are very irresponsible. Okay. We would like to make sure that the government of the day delivers on their election promises. But should God keep us alive until then, because we don't know. Okay. God keeps us alive. We will make that decision, because you never know. There could be another candidate from within Third Way Alliance Kenya. But for now, I'm the party leader, and our constitution is very clear. As the party leader, come an election, you must lead the party into an election. Okay, Daktari. Thank you so much for that.